The aforementioned Cowpokes are sitting at number 21. Appalachian State staying in the rankings up a spot.
Well, there's Oklahoma State at 21 that we just talked about. Oklahoma trying to gain ground right now. And Iowa State ranked now at 22 as well. That's a team, of course, Oklahoma has beaten. So good news for Oklahoma on their resume as they try and shorten the gap between teams ahead of them.
And don't miss SC in there, too, right now, because Oregon has a win over USC, and USC defeated Utah. So teams that you're going to see a little bit later on. Here's how it looks 16 through 20. Iowa up 3 spots after knocking Minnesota from the ranks of the unbeaten. So now, notice this. Memphis, the highest-ranked Group of 5 team, spot ahead of Cincinnati.
And interesting, Cincinnati was a spot ahead of Memphis last week. Cincinnati played another close game against USF. Their field goal kicker won another. They played East Carolina very close. And then Memphis beats Houston, blowing them out in the second half. And so the committee says, right now, we believe Memphis jumps ahead of Cincinnati, even though Cincinnati has not lost in the American Conference.
But it might not matter who's ahead of who because they are going to play each other in a couple of weeks, right?
And then maybe again, depending on everything. They may beat each other up, and Boise State might be the last one standing for that top spot in the Group of 5 conferences, which would get you a spot in a New Year's Six Bowl, the Cotton Bowl, almost certainly. Auburn, they've got 3 great losses, still in the top 15. Baylor only slips 1 spot, David, after that loss to Oklahoma.
Yeah, and you have to respect what they did. I mean, it wasn't like Baylor went out there and didn't put on a good showing, so that's interesting. Michigan still climbing up, by the way. They've been dominant the second half. Penn State moving forward, that's been a dominant football team. And then Florida's still up there. Remember Florida's 2 losses, guys. 1 LSU, 4 Georgia. From last week, the rankings could change this week.
Within 3 points of LSU.
Yeah.
It was a close game.
And the ball was down 7 against Georgia. I mean, crazy.
Well, the Florida LSU game wound up being a 2-touchdown game, but it felt much closer than that throughout the course of that game. Let's get to the top 10 now.
There you go.
Minnesota drops a couple of spots, but still in pretty good position, Herb Street, with Minnesota still in there at the top 10.
Maurice, it goes back to what you said in the open. I think it's all in front of Minnesota. Still the big game in the Axe against Wisconsin in Minneapolis. They win that Big Ten championship game. They win that. They're going to be in the top 4 as Big Ten champs. So disappointed that they lost, but they still have big opportunities ahead of them.
Oklahoma sneaks up 1 spot after that comeback win against Baylor. We've talked about the Sooners. The Sooners perhaps needing some help. Let's look at number 8. Just ahead of the Sooners at number 8 is Penn State. Now remember, Penn State lost head-to-head to Minnesota, but many of the metrics and other measures favor the Nittany Lions. I know that's frustrating to Gopher fans. This is going to sort itself out. Penn State plays Ohio State this week. If they win and Minnesota wins this division, they would get another shot at Penn State or a shot at Ohio State at the end. So maybe aggravating for now, but long-term, good shape. Utah sitting at number 7 right now. The Utes are one of the teams that are in the top 10 in offensive and defensive efficiency, along with teams that are ranked like Clemson and Alabama ahead of them.
Yeah, and this is a team that if they continue to win, they should see Oregon in the Pac-12 championship. So I'm expecting to see Oregon at number 6. Now, that's interesting because we talk so much about the Pac-12 and their chance to get in this thing. If you come to the final weekend with number 6 and number 7 and realizing these teams ahead of you have to play, Pac-12 is looking in a really good position right now.
How do you see that, Kirk? I know you're gonna see Oregon this weekend in terms of the Pac-12's chance of making the playoff. Good position right now, assuming that Oregon is 5 or 6.
Yeah, I've really felt that the last couple of weeks that we were trending this way. Both these teams, unless they get upset along the way, and that could happen, but they both look like they could be 11-1 meeting in that Pac-12 championship game with a lot on the line for the winner, obviously. And you look at the Big 12. Oklahoma and Baylor. Oklahoma did not get the bounce in the recognition from the committee for that win. Where are they going to make the move? They still potentially have, of course, they have Oklahoma State. They maybe have Baylor in a Big 12 championship game. Is that going to be enough, you think, Reese, to go by eventually the Pac-12 champ? It looks like the Big 12 champ for now on the outside looking in.
They need some chaos in the desert this weekend, it looks like, with both Oregon and Utah going to the state of Arizona.
Well, if they just played Baylor once and didn't get a big bump, they're not going to get it the second time either if they get to beat them again.
I think it's the way they beat them, though, being down by 25. Had they come in and put it on Baylor, I think we might see something a little different.
By the way,
but that way wasn't impressive.
I think the biggest thing to look forward now is the biggest fly in the ointment is Bama. Like the biggest thing for the Pac-12 is Bama. How does the committee now going to view this Alabama team? How is Rob Bones going to talk about Alabama now without 2? They're going to be ranked obviously ahead of these Pac-12 teams that have a chance to play Auburn, who's a pretty good team. But Is that going to be enough to stay a holding
I don't
pattern?
think so. I think they're a placeholder, barring everybody falling around them. Let's take a look now at the top of the rankings right now. At number 1, we would assume LSU stays put, and they do. The Bayou Bengals, a 9 million point favorite against Arkansas coming up this weekend. They'll move to 11-0 before finishing up against Texas A&M. Just behind them, I assume, still going to be Ohio State. And the Buckeyes have their biggest test of the season coming up, really the next 3 games if they can win one of these 2, or this next game against Penn State, assuming they play in the Big Ten championship game in 3 weeks, where Ohio State can really bolster its resume, maybe move back to that number 1 spot. You would see Clemson undefeated, Tigers cruising, nobody of note in their path. I'll have to go back and look, but did we have an ACC team ranked? I'll look at the ranks. I didn't see one. I don't think we did.
I don't know about Virginia Tech needs to start.
Well, if they, if they keep winning, they'll get a
this
chance.
weekend. I think they will.
Okay, so there's number 3, Clemson. So we assume Georgia's going to hold the 4 spot. And they do. Georgia's still at number 4. Georgia with a ton of quality wins, but now they have to deal with Texas A&M coming up, and then Georgia's margin for error is gone with that loss to South Carolina. Alabama is just behind at number 5. That's going to leave the Oregon Ducks at number 6. So at the moment, there is no, at least in terms of the rankings, there could have been discussion in the committee room that impacted Alabama as it relates to Tua Tagovailoa's injury, but no impact in the rankings so far. Hey, thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more scores, highlights, and analysis, you can download the ESPN app. You've got the ESPN app, right?
Honestly, on Saturdays for college football fans, if you don't have the ESPN app, that's the lifeline for every college football fan. So you have to have that. The live streaming now, ESPN Plus. To me, it's the only way to go.
ESPN Plus was key for me recently. Got to get ESPN Plus. Arkansas State, Troy, down to the wire.
Loving it.
Superdog winner. Thanks to ESPN Plus.